24 hours after the death of another UN soldier in Rwanda, a sharp reminder of the price that peacekeepers sometimes pay as the body of a Uruguayan major killed by a grenade was flown home from Kigali. Undeterred, President Mitterrand said he could no longer wait for the full UN relief operation there to be set in motion. For him, it was a matter of great urgency to halt further massacres. A small number of French troops have already helped out in escorting foreigners out of the war zone to safety. But a full French force arriving in Rwanda can expect a fierce reception from the rebel Rwandan Patriotic Front. France helped to train many of the government troops who've taken part in the slaughter of the past 2 months. And today, the RPF spokesman in Brussels urged his countrymen abroad to return to the defense of Rwanda. France, he said, will regret its adventure. The French government says the relief operation with up to 2,000 troops will take place only with the approval of the United Nations and the participation of African countries. Several have apparently already responded favorably. The Mitterrand initiative could begin within days. Bill Turnbull, BBC News.
Tens of thousands of people marched in London today to demonstrate for the rights of homosexuals. It was one of several marches in Western capitals to mark 25 years of campaigning for gay rights. The American actor and former football star O.J. Simpson is in jail tonight, accused of murdering his ex-wife and her male friend. His arrest came after a 50-mile police chase across Southern California, which was broadcast live on national television.
Inside the white Ford Bronco, one of the most famous men in America, on the run from police and facing double murder charges which could bring the death penalty. This several hours after he'd agreed to surrender to the authorities. Police and sheriff's officers used dozens of cars in their pursuit, but they didn't risk moving in, preferring to allow Simpson's friend, a former teammate, to drive. The former sporting hero spent much of the time lying on the back seat. The chase was carried live on coast-to-coast television.
We're looking at a Ford Bronco, and O.J. Simpson is almost back home.
The spectacle brought traffic to a standstill as spectators rushed from their cars and homes to see an American hero now accused of the brutal killing of his ex-wife and her male companion. Simpson held a gun to his own head for much of the journey into Los Angeles. A note he'd left confirmed that the star was contemplating suicide.
I can't go on. No matter what the outcome, people will look and point. I can't take that. I can't subject my children to that.
It's O.J. Simpson's superstar status as a record-breaking football player and, more lately, a media personality, appearing regularly in films and on television, which makes his fall from grace so hard for his fans to take. And many of them were at Simpson's mansion to witness the tense standoff which ensued after the police chase. Eventually he gave up peacefully. Now one of America's best-loved sporting stars is behind bars. But in a case which has attracted so much media attention about a famous American, questions are being asked as to how it will be possible to select a jury to give him a fair hearing. Jeremy Cook, BBC News, Los Angeles.
In Berlin, Allied troops have staged their final parade before they pull out for good. 2,000 British, French and American soldiers marched through the city centre. The mayor said without their commitment, Berlin would not be free. The last Allied soldier will leave before the end of the year.
British troops with their American and French colleagues marched down this street every year during the Cold War. It was meant as a joint show of Allied solidarity in the half of Berlin that was then engulfed by the Soviet Empire. Today, with tension in the city long gone, the final appearance of the three Western powers was more a celebration of a job complete than a flexing of military muscle. It was the city's mayor, Eberhard Diepken, who'd asked the Allies to put on the show on behalf of the citizens of Berlin.
I have been here since many years when before the wall was constructed, but I did never expect that this event was taking place in my life.
There were 12,000 Western troops here during Berlin's years of division. There are already fewer than half that number, and by the end of September they'll all be gone, as will the Russians, whose farewell parade takes place in the east of the city next week. Steve McCormack, BBC News, Berlin.
Now, with news of Ireland's first game in the World Cup and England's struggle in the Test, here's Helen Rollason.
The Republic of Ireland have set up the prospect of a major upset in the World Cup by taking an early lead in their opening match against Italy, one of the favourites to win the competition. Ray Houghton scored after 11 minutes and the Irish carried that lead into the second half.
For players conspicuously relaxed throughout a 12-day build-up in the United States, this was the real test. The team had acclimatised extensively for the energy-sapping heat and humidity produced by today's temperature, which inside the giant stadium nudged towards 90 degrees. And Ireland couldn't surely have imagined a better start. Only 10 minutes had passed when Ray Houghton collected a weak clearance from Italy's captain Franco Baresi and sent a left-foot shot over a stranded Gianluca Pagliuca in the Italian goal. It was Houghton's fourth goal in 60 international appearances and set the tone for a first half in which Ireland's industry constantly troubled Italy. Andy Townsend might have increased their lead shortly afterwards, but his shot was saved. But the Italians, among the favourites to win the tournament, did threaten the Irish defence, notably when Pepe Signori shot wide of Pat Bonner's goal. Italy, who brought on an extra forward, Daniel Massaro, at the start of the second half, sought an equaliser with increasing urgency, but winger Roberto Donadoni, presented with their best chance so far, shot over. A few minutes ago, Ireland still led by 1-0. Duncan Jones, BBC News at the World Cup.
The World Cup hosts, the United States, made history when they met Switzerland indoors at the Pontiac Silverdome in Detroit. The match, the first World Cup tie to be played under a roof, ended in a 1-1 draw. The Swiss went ahead through a George Breggy free kick late in the first half.
Yes.
But another spectacular free kick just before half-time from Eric Winalda earned the hosts an unexpected point. The Wimbledon Tennis Championships are still 2 days away, but the first seed is already out. The women's 7th seed, Mary Pierce of France, has mysteriously withdrawn for what she calls reasons beyond her control. Pierce, beaten in the French Open final last month, would have been playing at Wimbledon for the first time. The England cricket captain, Mike Atherton, has openly questioned an umpiring decision in the first controversy over the use of video evidence to determine run-outs. He claims the cameras hadn't proved Craig White was out. White's dismissal contributed to England conceding a first innings deficit of 195 runs in the second Cornhill Test against New Zealand at Lord's.
Against much derided opposition on a benign pitch, the scene seemed set for another orgy of English stroke play. Only Graham Gooch neglected to play a stroke at all. It initiated a collapse worthy in the context of comparison with more infamous disasters. Atherton went at the same score. Then Smith succumbed to a shot that may call a temporary halt to his participation at this level. 95 for 1 had become 101 for 4, and it took Craig White's unexpected maturity in making a maiden half-century to arrest an alarming slide. He and Hick had put on an invaluable 92 when controversy intervened in the form of a contentious run-out. The third umpire gave the verdict on video evidence, which Mike Atherton, the England captain, complained later couldn't possibly have been conclusive. Subsequent freeze-frame evidence, not available to umpire Roy Palmer, proved White was out, just. That dismissal, coupled with Hicks soon after for 58, consigned England to the indignity of a struggle to avoid the follow-on. By the time Taylor went, they were 9 down and still 6 runs short. But eventually, Rhodes scrambled them to safety, the relief lacing the cheers, itself an indictment of their batting. More significantly, when Nash claimed such as his 6th victim, England had conceded a deficit of 195 runs. The Kiwis, supposedly down and out after the first test, are lauding it at Lord's. Kevin Geary, BBC News.
Meanwhile, England's next test opponents, South Africa, began their historic tour of this country when they arrived at Heathrow Airport today. They're the first South African team to play here since 1965. The Labour MP, Peter Hain, was at the airport to greet the tourists. He was a prominent protester against a South African team touring England in 1970. Colin Montgomerie is still on course to become the first British winner of the US Open Golf Championship in 24 years. But he's had to withstand a dramatic challenge from South African Ernie Els, whose eagle at the 4th took him to the turn in a record-equalling 30 and into a 3-shot lead. But Montgomerie, who began the day 2 shots clear, recaptured the lead when he equalled the 9th, and Els double-bogeyed the 10th. And coverage of the golf is continuing now on BBC2. Peter.
Tonight's main news again. Wednesday's threatened rail strike is still on, despite 7 hours of talks at ACAS. That's all from the newsroom tonight. From Helen and me, good night.
In conversation with David Frost tomorrow morning here on BBC1, Labour leadership contender John Prescott and controversial former Defence Minister Alan Clarke makes a rare TV appearance. That's in Breakfast with Frost tomorrow at 8:15.
Good evening. Well, once again, it's been a dry and mainly fine day across much of England and Wales. But across Northern Ireland and Scotland, there's still a lot of rain around at the moment. It was a very cloudy day as well. You can see that rain through Belfast, through the island of Skye and up towards the Northern Isles. Now, during the night, that cloud and rain will sink its way further south, ending up across Northern Ireland and southern Scotland by dawn. Temperatures tonight, well, very little difference from the south where it's clearer across that cloud and rain band, generally around 11 degrees, although a little bit cooler to the north. Now on Sunday, we'll still see a frontal band of rain and cloud across Northern Ireland and across southern Scotland, giving some clouds, some patchy rain during the day. But for much of Scotland, a much brighter, warmer and drier day, just 1 or 2 showers for the far Northern Isles. Down across England and Wales, the sun poking through by the afternoon, giving some sunnier skies tomorrow than we had today. Temperatures around about the same here, though, around about 23 degrees, but perhaps feeling that little bit warmer with just lighter winds coming in from the southwest. Certainly much warmer for southeastern areas of Scotland tomorrow. Temperatures there around 17 or 18 degrees. Still rather cool in the far north, though. Temperatures there around 14 to 13. Well, that's it from me for now. A very good night to you.
Ken Clarke would like to swap the Chancellor's robes for the Prime Minister's mantle.
Good grief. I'm not going to do a kind of 1930s film star bit of whisking that around. I mean...
But how much do we really know about the bookie's favourite to succeed John Major? Ken Clarke is a man of many faces. Beneath the cigar smoke and the hush puppies lurks a complex character. Find out which is the real Ken Clarke in The Bloke Next Door, tomorrow night on 2.
The cook's got leave. The crew don't like it.
Sweeping egg McMuffins off the floor at the